What is up, guys? We're back. It is Tuesday night, and finally have made it through the week with no show. Yes, last week I was very proud to applaud as my sister made her way across the stage and was awarded her LPN nursing, you know the thing. So I was very proud of her. Man, I can't wait to tell you what we have in store. A couple of weeks from now, definitely going to have a link that each and every one of you should look up. It's going to be interesting. What else? We're just going to have fun tonight, guys. I cannot wait. So, as you can tell, we are down one person tonight. Unfortunately, Marcus could not make it, but he's in here in spirit. We are dedicating. I told him I'd dedicate this show to him, even though it's probably he's in the shower right now after a hard day of work, because he does work very hard. So, we're just going to dive right on into this first segment. Now, you will know the backstory of this first segment, because we talked about it about a month ago. Also, before I get too far in, feel free to ask questions in the live chat. I would love nothing more than to answer them, if I can. So try and stump me. There's your challenge. All right. So, a few weeks ago, we talked about James Tubbs, a 26-year-old man who was sentenced to 2 years in a female juvenile detention center.
Hi, Tim.
Now, this guy, it's just a terrible story, right? So, 26-year-old man who sentenced 2 years in a female juvenile detention center, and if that doesn't make sense to you, well, it didn't make sense a month ago either. Let's see. So, just as a quick refresher, this guy, 2 weeks before he turned 18, cornered a 10-year-old girl in a bathroom and sexually assaulted her, going so far as to stick his hands down her pants before someone else entered the room, and he was forced to stop. Now, who knows what else he would have done to this 10-year-old girl. He had at least 2 other convictions against him involving underage girls, as well as a couple other ones. No, the Stratocaster, I cannot be your boyfriend. I apologize. Anyways, and he pled guilty to this. He didn't fight it. He didn't contest it. He admitted to it. So why is he only getting 2 years in a female juvie center as a grown adult male? And unfortunately, the answer is he's female now, of course. Now, he's not female. He's not. This transition happened while he was in custody, and now we know why, as if it wasn't immediately obvious. So, explicit Los Angeles jailhouse recordings of Hannah Reed James Tubbs, because he's not a woman, I don't care what they say. The 26-year-old trans child molester who received a slap on the wrist last month after pleading guilty to molesting a 10-year-old in 2014 depict him admitting it was wrong to attack the little girl, but gloating over the light punishment. It's going to be, this whole thing is written with her and all that. I'm not reading it like that because he's a him. Truth matters. So we're just going to go with the pronouns of what he actually is. So he boasted that nothing would happen to him after he pleaded guilty due to Democrat District Attorney George Gascon's policies, and laughed that he won't have to go back to prison or register as a sex offender. He laughed. In fact, I've heard the recording. He laughed. He laughed. And it's just, it's chilling to hear, because you can tell he has no remorse. So he won't have to go back to prison or register as a sex offender. He also made explicit remarks about the victim that are unfit to print. Now think about that. this guy, oh man, he needs to be let gin pop in a regular prison and told, tell people that he's a child molester. That's what needs to happen to him. Because that's just absolutely terrifying. It's awful. And it's going to be terrifying to his cellmate, who I'm sure just loves the idea of spending 2 years locked in the same room at night with him. But as we've talked about before, her feelings don't matter. She's a casualty of the cause. He goes on and says, I'm going to plead guilty, Tubbs says in one recording. They're going to stick me on probation and it's going to be dropped. It's going to be done. I won't have to register, won't have to do nothing. Yes, this dude is very smart. Won't have to do nothing. So this is James talking with his dad over the phone while he was in prison. It's all recorded because parents don't have any privacy privileges. They don't have the attorney-client privilege. And I just want you to take a look at this guy. Tell me this guy is a woman. Tell me. And it just dropped down. Whoop. There he is. Tell me this guy's a woman. This guy is this, and tell me if he has any remorse. He has no remorse in his eyes. Not a woman, no remorse. But they're going to stick him in a female juvie. And we've gone all over that, but it's just so much worse when it actually gets shown that he doesn't care. He doesn't care. He's laughing. Basically, that's what the guy looked like. He's not even trying to look feminine. I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter. But he doesn't even make an attempt. Like, at least make an attempt, dude. Actually, don't. Just go to prison. If you're gonna, be a man and force yourself onto a 10-year-old, be a man enough to go to prison for it. But that's not going to happen. Let's see. I would guarantee you that he has no plans to cut it off. None at all. And this is just me speculating. But I'd be willing to put money that as soon as this 2 years is over and he gets let out and he's off scot-free, I'd be willing to bet that this whole I'm a woman thing gets thrown out the window. He's going to just be like, nope, I'm a dude now. That's what I feel. I got out of prison and my gender is I am a man. No, you aren't. You are a child in all but the way that actually matters, your actual age. And you're evil. We just put that up there. You're evil. So earlier today, and this is talking about, a little surprise I'll have for y'all coming up, I recorded a little something that I can't quite say anything yet about, but I'm very excited for. You see, the topic, of course, was transgenderism, and I made the argument that when it comes to the trans ideology, there's two basic groups that have to be identified and handled differently. Now, of course, there's a lot of overlap, but the breakdown is that, and this is just through all the research I do for this, the breakdown is that you have actual trans people who are hurting, confused, and lied to, and then you have what I call the gender affirmists. These just the people who push it, right? Now, dealing with trans people, we have to realize that a lot of them are, like I said, hurting, depressed, and very confused. And if you're a Christian, these people need to be met firmly but lovingly with the gospel and with ministry and outreach to them, which, by the way, would fulfill our mandate to go tell all peoples about Jesus' saving grace. You see, most of these kids, especially, but even adults, are very confused, have been lied to, and they believe it. These people are not evil. They are sinful like me and you, but they are not evil, which is a very important distinction to make. Gender affirmists, on the other hand, the ones who do the confusing, the lying, think parents that force their kids into this. I know I talk about parents' rights on this, but if you force your kid into the trans lifestyle when they're like 4 or 5 or 14, then yeah, you are not fit to be a parent. But they force their kids into believing this. we've seen the videos, we've seen the TikToks, and it's absolutely disgusting. It's heartbreaking, really. And also, I want you to think of school teachers and faculty that have been caught helping students transition without their parents' knowledge. That happened here, like 15 miles from where I'm sitting. Think of psychiatrists who push out gender-affirming first therapy approach, a gender-affirming first therapy approach. So instead of saying, hey, you know, you got these feelings, let's just wait a while and see what happens, and we'll talk about it, you know, and maybe try to lead them to, you know, face reality and push through. No, they go with gender-affirming first. So they tell a little boy who thinks, hey, I might be a girl, instead of saying, hey, let's just see what happens, they say, no, you're a girl, you're whatever you feel like. These people, you think of the celebrities and politicians who support this whole trans ideology and berate anyone who says the truth, that this is not reality, because it's not. Now think of the mindless social media hordes who call for the cancellation of anyone who dares say trans people are wrong and confused. One, these people also need the gospel. And two, these are the people that we need to fight against politically, call out whenever we have the chance. These people deserve our righteous anger. You see all that all through the Bible is righteous anger is not necessarily a bad thing. As I have in my notes, these are the people who need to be driven out of the temple with a whip, so to speak. And I say that to say, I said all of that because it's very important, but I said all of that to say this. I was wrong. There is admittedly a third small group. Those that use this to, sometimes quite literally, get out of jail free. Whether they're this guy or anyone else who uses these people's real pain to help themselves, this is pure evil. You can see it in his eyes, as I said before. There is absolutely no remorse there. See, these are the type of people that, while still needing the gospel and should be given a chance to hear and respond to it, also fall under the people who people in the Bible like David and others prayed for the destruction. And this happened all throughout Psalms for God's mighty hand to judge the sinful, the evil. All through Psalms you see that. Because sometimes real evil can only be stopped by utter destruction. So does this guy deserve that? I'll leave that up to a just God. But as far as consequences here on earth goes, his actions have consequences just beyond him. So here's actually what his victims say all of these years later. She says, "The things he did to me and made me do that day was beyond horrible for a 10-year-old girl to have to go through," she said. "I wanted him tried as an adult for the crimes he committed against me." See, she said that the light sentence was offensive and hurtful and offered her no true justice. And that got me thinking, all too often we hear of things being offensive and hurtful, and a lot of it really isn't. People get mad about things people say online, and they're offended, and they're hurt. But they're really not. They're not hurt. They're not offended. They just want to get social justice points. Now, this is not a case of that. If you want something to be truly offended by, it's the complete lack of justice, 100% due to the progressive district attorney, which is why, honestly, all of these votes matter. Don't leave, Lee. Gotta give a shout out because I keep seeing it in the live chat. So, going on, she said, "I've also heard that my attacker goes by she, them pronouns now," she added. "I see it also unfair to try him as a woman as well, seeing how he clearly didn't act like one on January 1st of 2014. I don't really need to add to that. She is spot on. So doing the math, she'd be, what, 18 now? Which is probably why she is speaking to media outlets about this. But she's spot on here. Like, yeah, He was not, if he was man enough to do what he did then, he needs to be man enough to, confront the consequences of his actions. But that's not going to happen. This is on the progressive. This is on the transformist. This is evil and the consequences of letting evil run amok. And this is not going away, not on a large scale, which is why each and every one of you and each and every one of and me, all of us have to fight locally to keep this madness at bay. That's where we can do it. Keep it away from our family, our friends. For me, my little brothers, my niece. For those of you who have kids, keep it away from them. This is the fight we are in. We have to keep the madness at bay. And this is why you have to not only fight and vote for this stuff at a state level, but you have to care about states' rights. This is why school superintendents who say things like boys play against boys in sports and girls against girls. That's very important. It's why we need district attorney and attorney generals who say things like gender affirming care is actually child abuse. That happened in Texas just, I believe, yesterday. It's why this should matter to you, because one day, if you do nothing, this will come knocking on your door. So you better be ready, because it's coming. It's coming. So, moving on. And I found this, and do y'all remember the After School Satan Club? The After School Satan Club story we did a few weeks ago near the beginning of the year. I mean, I still can't help but laugh at how cartoonishly evil it is, and that that flyers for this were left in elementary schools. I don't care how nicely you frame it. Teaching kids to supposedly think for themselves or take a scientific look at things, which, side note and tangentially, on a tangent, that generally brings you back to God. It really does. You look at science, and it's amazing how much it points to a creator of the universe, an intelligent designer. But anyways, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how many pretty words you say. If you have Satan in your name, the After School Satan Club, if you have Satan in your name, you are wrong, and I truly hope you repent, because if you don't, I'm sure there will be an especially heated portion of hell for leading kids astray. Now, as bad as that story was, there was one thing missing from it. No teacher or facilitator had direct ties to or influences upon them from the After School Satan Club or the satanic temple that hosted it. Wow. This is where we're at in America, guys. This is where we are at. Also, that is not the case here, because a 4th grade teacher owned a satanic temple in Indiana. A 4th grade teacher owned a satanic temple in Indiana. Makes you think where we're at and just how far the American church has dropped the ball. So going into this, I want to distinguish something very important here. The story itself is not funny. It's demonic evil before our very eyes and in our own country. If you know anyone from Indiana, they may have friends who have kids who are taught by this woman. And even if you don't, someone's kids are taught by this woman. Just think about that. We need to stop dropping the ball. That being said, though, it's so like I said, cartoonishly evil that I just can't help but laugh at its brazenness. I want to read the whole article, but I will restrain myself a little bit. So Jessica Klickas, Klikas, so I hope I'm saying that right, is a teacher at Haverhill Elementary School in Fort Wayne, Indiana. She is listed as a staff member in the school's staff directory, as well as the Southwest Allen County Schools District website. Her LinkedIn says she is a 4th grade teacher at Southwest Allen County Schools, where she has worked since 2019. Okay, so she's like thousands of other teachers. So you thought. Meanwhile, Clickus also owned... How hard would that be for 4th graders to say, by the way? Miss Clickus, I wonder if they call her like Miss K. Anyway. Also owned the Satanic Temple, Indiana, according to Indiana Secretary of State records. She started the Satanic Temple, Indiana, also... It's so brazen here, guys. It's so brazen. She started the Satanic Temple, Indiana, also known as Porta Infernum, translated from Latin to be Gate of Hell, LLC. In 2019, the month before she began working as a 4th grade teacher. Supposedly that LLC is dissolved, but she's still a part of this. She was in Instagram posts and tweets and all that were deleted by the Satanic Temple, Indiana. Porta Infernum. Wow. This is not subtle. So she gives the game away and how she named it. As if naming it the Satanic Temple, Indiana wasn't enough. But she wants to bring people to hell with her. Which begs the question, if she runs this, why would she then want to also teach 4th graders? I mean, the answer is obvious. It's perfectly obvious. A little bit further down, it's perfectly obvious why she wants to teach 4th graders while also running a satanic temple that literally she named the Gates of Hell. It's obvious. If you can't put 2 and 2 together, I worry about you. So a little bit further down, defending their actions in hiring this woman, the school board says that as a public school corporation, our teachers are expected to teach the approved curriculum, and they are not to impose their personal beliefs on their students. Yeah, okay, I don't believe you. I do not believe you enforce this. At least not one way. The other way, maybe. But I do not believe you impose this, or you enforce this the other way. I just don't. I don't believe that she teaches without imposing her own opinions on her students. I just don't. And when her opinions are, in line with the Satanic Temple, that's a problem. It's a problem. It's a place where the church has dropped the ball. Okay, where are we at? Like I said, I just don't believe it with all the stuff coming out over the whole country where teachers are being exposed for all sorts of things. It's you see it all throughout the high school. I remember, if you go back, you can go back several shows and fact check me, but I think it was something like 1 in 50 students. 1 in 50 out of what? There's 73 million kids below the age of 18 right now. 1 in 50 of them are sexually assaulted by a teacher or facility member. It was crazy. And it's actually even worse among students, like 1 in 10. So that's a crazy number of students right there who are being sexually assaulted in high schools. But the fact that 2% of students, 2% of 73 million is still a lot. All across the country are being assaulted for this, and I just don't believe that she's not pushing her views. So I don't have a whole lot for this story. It pretty much doesn't need to be explained. It's literally right there in all of its evilness. There isn't any attempt to hide it. There's no shame in it. That's the thing. There's no shame in it. There used to be shame in being associated with the Satanic Temple. You didn't hear about anyone doing it. And now we've had 2 different instances of public schools being linked to the Satanic Temple in like a month or 2. It's nuts. It's nuts, guys. We got to stop dropping the ball. So I guess the lesson you take away from this is find out who's teaching your children. Make use of every chance to meet them, get to know them. Maybe take them aside and say, if you try and screw up my kid, I will rip your head off. I don't know. Don't do the last one, but get to know them. Hold your school boards accountable for who they hire. You have that power as a group of parents. See, that's one thing that I'm surprised churches don't do. It'd be the easiest thing to do. Get a group of people from the church who are going to go to a school meeting with one thing on their mind. And then every person uses all of their time to talk one right after another about this one thing. I don't know why we don't do that as a church in the first place. Mostly because churches right now think they shouldn't be involved in political, and that's just wrong. It's just wrong. It's just wrong. But yeah, go to your school boards. Hold these people accountable. Your children are your greatest investment. I know mine will be, and I don't even have kids yet, but I know they will be. And so let's just treat them as such. Okay. There is one line, probably the funniest line out of a news article that I have ever seen. And I couldn't find a good way to I couldn't not put this in because it's just, here we go. So this is directly from that article talking about the Satanic Temple. In 2019, the Satanic Temple, Indiana hosted an event called Menstruating with Satan, a donation drive to raise money for menstrual products to donate to charity. Menstruating with Satan. That's what they came up with. I promised myself I wouldn't make any jokes, and I'm not. Period. Moving on. Period. I did see a good question, and it says, it's difficult fighting for our right to religion. How does this make you feel as a Christian soldier? So, of course, as I may be called on to defend all of our rights. And as much as I don't like the fact that I'm not putting on the government to shut down the Satanic Church of Satan, the Satanic Temple of Satan, unless, they can prove that they're doing something highly illegal. If they're sacrificing children in there, you can't do that. I mean, you can if you're Planned Parenthood, but you can't if it's the Satanic Temple. That being said, as Christians, that we would allow this there, that we're not just absolutely refusing to do anything to have any commerce with people. Freedom of association is still a thing in America. And the fact that Christians have let themselves become so quiet that people feel okay letting this person be a fourth grade teacher shows where the American church is at right now. Another question was, how do you tiptoe along the line of keeping church and state separate while still fighting as a church? Simple. You show up. You push that line as far as you can. And eventually you'll feel pushback. But, the church and state was supposed to keep us from having a full-on state religion. So, that's what they were running from when the first pilgrims came to America, in a lot of ways, was a state-controlled religion. Having a church being a part of politics, having people's convictions when they go to vote, when they go to question politicians themselves, having a Christian focus is not blurring the lines between church and state, because we as a people don't have a right to be free from religion. It's when that church and state line is basically to keep the government from going, hey, you, I don't know, Muslims over there, you're either converting to Christianity, or we're either deporting you, or we're just going to shoot you. That's what that's for. It's not to keep Christians out of politics or any other religion out of politics. So great questions. I will actually really enjoy answering them on the fly. I don't have anything for them on the screen in front of me, so I enjoy being challenged. So thank you. All right. Yeah, no more questions about menstruating with Satan. Period. All right, so as we know, Russia has invaded Ukraine. Now, here's the thing. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I have any special knowledge of what is going on. You can find that on whatever news site you want to use. Instead, I want to talk about valor. And I'm not trying to glorify war with this segment. But I want to show some heroes and maybe give all of us some inspiration to live up to these virtues. And it's kind of what they do to us when we go into basic training. You have to learn a bit of military history and the sacrifices that people have made sort of as a legacy and also something to live up to. So we're going to use a couple of these stories because find some parallels in this. This first one was a Ukrainian soldier is being credited with giving his life by blowing up a bridge to stop advancing Russian forces that were cutting through Ukraine after Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered a full-scale invasion this past week. So when the battalion decided that the only way to block the armored column was by blowing up the bridge, this guy, it's a Russian name, guys. Have mercy on me. This guy, his name is Vitaly Skakun Volodymyrovich. I'm going to call him Vitaly. Not as any disrespect to him or what he did, but because saying his name's hard. Vitaly volunteered to place mines on the span, the New York Post reported, and when he realized that he had no time to get to safety, this brave soldier made the ultimate sacrifice on the bridge, which connected Russian-occupied Crimea and mainland Ukraine. So this is an amazing act of bravery and sacrifice that no doubt slowed down the Russians and caused havoc on their logistics. This column going to this bridge had to take the long way around, very long way around, no doubt being one of the many columns that ran out of fuel along the way that you keep seeing. And most likely this saved many, many lives. It's an act of bravery most Americans would never consider, although it does take me back to a story I first heard in basic training. In fact, they read us this over the intercom one night. It's short, so I'm going to read it to you. And this is a infantryman's account of D-Day. And I'm not going to lie, it's definitely hard to read without some sort of emotion building up. So we're going to go for it, and I'm going to do my best. So it says, the entire beach and hillside was covered with obstacles. A unit of sappers had gone ahead to find where the mines were. Those guys were smack in the middle of it. German bullets coming down from up top, and our bullets going back the other way, with mortars landing everywhere. They moved in pairs. If one went down, his partner picked up his kit and kept moving. They didn't call for a single medic. They just kept crawling up the beach as far as they could until they couldn't no more. You could see them pulling themselves up the hillside even after their legs got shattered from the explosions. I remember all their bodies had marker flags sticking out of them. The dirt was too loose to hold the flags up, and the blast would have knocked them over. So the guys had shot themselves up with morphine and stuck the flags into their legs. When you got to one that was still breathing, he would tell you where it was safe to step. They were about 25 yards apart. When I got to the base of the hill, I took a quick look back, and that's when I saw it. Those sappers had made a trail with their own bodies. Now, how do you not keep going after something like that? So there's a good chance nobody watching this is ever going to have to fight and die on a battlefield. That being said, courage goes beyond that. It may not be that we here in America will ever have to defend our country and make every step an enemy takes a costly one. The American public may never have to do what the Ukrainian public is doing right now, taking up arms against a superior force. But that doesn't give people here a license to be cowards. There's another story of incredible bravery. As the Ukrainian guards on a small island, Snake Island, Russian ships came up to them and said, "This is a military warship. This is a Russian military warship. I suggest you lay down your weapons and surrender to avoid bloodshed and needless casualties. Otherwise, you will be bombed." The reply back, slightly edited by me, is, "Russian warship, go have sexual relationships with yourself." Initially, these 13 brave soldiers were thought dead. Now, reports say they may still be alive and captured after they might have survived the initial bombing. But it reminds me of another story. This one from the Battle of the Bulge, back in World War II. With the 101st cut off and surrounded by the Germans in Bastogne, Brigadier General Anthony McAuliffe was given the option of surrendering. His only reply, which was given to the Germans, was nuts. He wrote that down and sent it back. This was explained to mean exactly what the Ukrainians said to the Russians when it was given to the Germans. Both of these were valiant and courageous remarks to make. There's a good chance that both parties who responded to the bigger, superior forces they did would probably die. They were in a position where they were probably not going to make it out. Now, we know from history that the 101st did make it out of Bastogne, and it looks like the Ukrainians maybe made it off the island. But it required courage. It required guts. And that is what we need right now. It's the courage to stand up to the evil around us and tell it to back off. Every one of us is in a cultural war. And as Christians, we are in a spiritual war. We have to have the same courage, the same resolve, the same valor as all these men did, or we'll lose. And that's what's happening right now. We're losing. So whatever you hear politically about the war, whatever your thoughts are on if we should join it, whatever it is, take this lesson. We must be just as brave as the men here. We must be just as brave in our own personal lives, fighting against this evil. That's all I got to say about that. Do have one more segment. I kind of miss having Marcus here to bounce stuff off of, but you know what? Again, dedicating to you, buddy. All right, I do have one last segment. It is a TikTok. And there it is. There's my mouse. All right, let's just take a look at this. Here we go.
Characteristics from either end of that spectrum.
So, I don't know why it shifted all the way over here. The question is, what does polygender mean?
Hi, Tammy. Thanks for asking. So polygender literally just means multiple genders or many genders. We live in a world where mainstream society has decided and agreed that there are two genders, and we call them male and female, or masculine and feminine, and they correspond with genitalia. But there are those of us who, regardless of what's going on with our bodies, identify with characteristics from either end of that spectrum, or places in between that spectrum, or even entirely outside of that spectrum. So my gender is this, what you see right now before you, and my gender is this. First thing when I wake up in the morning, my gender usually looks something like this. But by the time I finish getting ready, my gender might fall somewhere in this vicinity. For me, it's more about listening to how my body and my consciousness want to present in the world, rather than letting the world tell me how to present based on what's going on in my pants. Hi, Tammy. Thanks.
All right, that's enough of you. Why do they make this job so hard? It's actually good that they do, because, you know, stuff to talk about is great, but... All right. So let's see. Let's go through what this gentleman talked about. His gender is whatever it decides to present itself today. So you mean you have no identity? That's what you're telling me. Your identity is apparently how you choose to dress and put makeup on and all that. And he says he wants to do this instead of it being based off what's between his legs, which is actually not what biological sex and gender is based off of. It's actually based off what's in your DNA. That's just an outward showing of it. But even still, just changing your clothes and your appearance and how you talk, that doesn't change your gender. Okay, take a deep breath. Here's the thing you need to understand. This person. What they need to understand is that you are trying to base your complete identity off of something that changes every day, several times a day. You're trying to change your gender off of, it's anchored to nothing, and so it'll flow anywhere. It's rushing on the tide of human consciousness, and you're just, I'm here right now, I'm over there later. I can imagine that you're a very happy person. I may be wrong. You may have found some way to cheat the system. I don't know. But I will guarantee you that once you die, you will not be a happy soul. Mostly because it's hard to be happy as you are burning. So I'm just telling you right now, firmly, and with the whole intention of you or anyone like you needs to know that your only identity that is going to last is going to be in God and in the gospel of Jesus Christ. And anything outside of that, you're just going to be shifting, because there's no objective truth. See, what you're doing is just shifting to whatever you feel like. And in a way, that does make it easier for us, because it's exactly the same as if you were based on any type of godly morality. If there was a dividing morality line that anchored you to one spot and one identity, it'd be the same for us. Because you don't have any identity, we have to call you male. Of course, if you were in the correct identity, we also call you male, because you would realize where you're at. So I really, really hope you figure out the fact that you have to have an identity based on something real, and that you realize that that real thing is God. Good luck to you and everyone else like you, and to all of us, because all of us have to come to that at some point. But yeah, that's about it. So, all right, everybody. I really enjoyed tonight. Even without Marcus, it was really fun. I cannot wait to share what I've been up to in the next couple of weeks. We hope to have more videos coming soon. I should have a lot more stability and free time to make these videos in the future. And I legitimately can't not wait to make more content for you guys. So I know it's a little late in the show, but like, subscribe, maybe leave a comment down below. I'll try and read them. I might try to respond to them if it's a good question. Make sure to hit the little bell over there. What that'll do is it'll call me over, and I'll chase you around with, like, I don't know, I'll chase you around until you watch the next video every time there's a video that pops up. It'll be good for both of us, because we'll both get in shape. That being said, cannot wait to see you guys later. Love y'all all. Be safe. And remember, do something to get you canceled. Because if a leftist tries to cancel you, you're probably doing something right. See you guys.